This video is going to demonstrate how to make a harvest basket. So come along and we will get started. To begin making the basic structure of the basket, you will want to make 2 circles or rings that will eventually interlock with one another. To do this, you want to gently take your material and bend it into a circle. As you bend it, be careful not to break it. And then once it's in a circle, just take the top pieces and wrap them into itself. So sort of weave those top parts around that basic circle that you just made. And this will help secure the material and keep it structurally intact. Now that we have our 2 rings made, we can put them together by placing one ring inside the other. Sometimes I like to play around with the rings a little bit to see how they want to fit together. You do want a little bit of tension, so you can see here I'm holding this and it's not falling apart. Ideally, that is the goal. And then the next step we're going to do is a God's eye, and it's going to be where the 2 rings overlap. As you can see, I have a God's eye holding this side together. And what we're going to do is we're going to put another God's eye on this side. You want to begin by tucking the end of your string into a spot that kind of makes sense to you. And that will eventually get secured in as you make your God's eye. Okay, so once you have that in place, you want to take your string and you are going to go over and around the back side. And then you're going to cross over to the next piece. And then you're going to go around the back, just like you did before. And here I'm going to go around this little twiggy part that's sticking out. But, you know, that's just because that's the basket and I'm just kind of going with it. But then you want to go down and to the next one, go across. And again, you're going to go around. You try to keep things nice and tight. And then go across the next one. And around the back. And now you're back to where you began. You're going to just keep repeating the same process. Okay, so go across. And you're going to go around the back there. Go to the next one, go across again. And around the back. Again, I'm including my little twig there. Go across and around the back. Across again. And around. And then just keep going. So you're going to go across again and around. So that you eventually sort of get a rhythm to it and it just sort of flows. And then just keep going until you feel like your God's eye is securing your two pieces together. When you're ready to finish your God's eye, you're just gonna simply tie it off in a knot. So as you can see here, I'm just giving it a little tie, and then you're all set. For the next step, you will need to secure material for the ribbing and the weavers, otherwise known as warp and weft. The material shown here is spruce root, which will be used for the weavers, and the weavers need to have a good degree of flexibility. For the ribbing, you'll want something that has a little bit more durability to it. And as you can see here, the ribbing forms the basic structure of the basket. I used shoots from an apple tree for this basket. Begin by adding 2 pieces of ribbing to the basket, one on the right side and one on the left side of what will become the bottom of the basket. To do this, cut the ribbing down to size and then gently tuck the ends into the God's eye. The next step is where the magic happens. We are going to add a weaver into the basket. And to do this, you want to begin by tucking the weaver into the God's eye, and then we're going to use an over-under pattern. So we're going to weave the material over the ribbing, and then under the ribbing, over the ribbing, under the ribbing. This process is important because it begins to secure your basket together. And in order for this process to work, you need to have an odd number of ribs. So if we count the bottom of the basket and the 2 ribs that we added in, as well as what will become the rim of the basket, you will have 5 ribs. Okay, and because of that, every time you go over and under, it will make an opposite pattern. So when you go over something and you come back the next time, you should be going under. And if you go under something, you should be going over it the next time. If this isn't happening, then you either do not have an odd number of ribbing, or somewhere along the line you just made a mistake and you have to go back and fix it. So we're going to continue on with this process, and once we finish adding in this weaver, we're going to add a weaver into the other side of the basket. When you come to the end of your weaver, all you have to do is just go ahead and tuck the weaver into itself to secure it into place. As I mentioned earlier, when you're done with that one side, go ahead and put a weaver on the other side as well. Once you have a weaver on each side, you want to add another piece of ribbing to each side of your basket. And to do this, you want to just cut the ribbing down to size and tuck it into the weavers that you have just put in to your basket. So once you have these new pieces of ribbing in place, you are going to do what you did last time, where you add a weaver into each side of the basket with that same over-under pattern. I'll show you a little bit of what I did here. I'm going to speed it up for you since I think you have the process down. But again, you added in 2 pieces of ribbing. So now you have 7 ribs. The 2 rims, the bottom of the basket, the 4 pieces of ribbing. This gives you an odd number of ribbing, so that every time you go over and under, you're creating a tension that's going to keep everything in place. And then when you're finished, just go ahead and tuck that right in like you did last time, and you can even weave it back into itself a little bit. That will just create an even more secure weaver. Go ahead and do that on the other side of your basket as well. Essentially, you want to repeat this process. So once we have this weaver in on the other side, we are going to add our final ribs in. Okay, so just to go over what we've done thus far. We started off with our first 2 pieces of ribbing that we put on each side. We added a piece of weaver on each end. We then added our next 2 pieces of ribbing into those weavers, and then added a piece of weaver on each side again, and finished with our final 2 pieces of ribbing and a weaver on each side to hold those in place. The final thing that we will be doing is to just go ahead and fill in the remainder of the basket with our weavers. The final thing that I wanted to mention to you when you're working on weaving your basket, you want to begin your new weavers a few ribs down from where you finished your last weaver. And when you add in that new weaver, you're simply just going to start weaving a few ribs from where you left off. That way you are creating a more secure basket. So just as how when you finish a weaver, you kind of weave it into itself, it's almost like you're doing the opposite of that. You're sort of weaving it into itself when you begin a new weaver, and that way you are not creating any gaps or any places of weakness in your basket. So as we come to the end of the basket, I hope that you're able to try to bring this skill into your life. Weaving baskets has always been one of my favorite things to do. And there are endless possibilities when it comes to materials and baskets you can make. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below, and I'd be happy to help you out. And until next time, I hope you're able to bring a little bit of the wild into your life.